Hey everybody, welcome to the David Pakman Show. I'm producer Pat Ford filling in for David today as he is traveling, but fear not, he's going to be back with us on Monday. Donald Trump suffered 3 legal defeats in courts all across the country this week. Let's dive right into it because he is not having a great time when it comes to these criminal trials. Former President Donald Trump encountered significant legal setbacks this week having to do with 3 out of his 4 criminal cases. 2 were over attempts to dismiss criminal charges outright, and 1 was over an attempt to delay the trial. Turns out he lost all 3 motions. Let's start first with the New York hush money trial. Judge Juan Merchan dismissed Trump's motion to delay the New York hush money trial, scheduled to start in just a couple weeks from now, April 15th. Trump's legal team had sought to postpone the trial until the Supreme Court ruled on the claim of presidential immunity that he is using in his federal 2020 election case. That's actually succeeded in delaying that case, at least for now, until the Supreme Court hears this immunity argument. So the idea from Trump's lawyers when it came to this New York case was maybe we can get this one delayed as well. And of course, if you're Trump, you want to delay as much as possible, delay it until at least the 2024 election and beyond. And then with some of these federal cases, at least you have the chance of being able to pardon yourself if you're found guilty. So Trump's lawyers were trying to test their luck, but Juan Merchan stepped in and rejected the motion as untimely, emphasizing that they missed their opportunities to file such a motion, to take legal action like this. So once again, this comes down to poor legal work from Donald Trump's defense team. If they had put in this argument earlier, maybe Judge Merchan would have been more amenable to it. Merchan wrote, "This court finds that defendant had myriad opportunities to raise the claim of presidential immunity well before March 7, 2024. After all, defendant had already briefed the same issue in federal court, and he was in possession of and aware that the people intended to offer the relevant evidence at trial that entire time. The circumstances viewed as a whole test this court's credulity." The trial centers, of course, on hush money payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign, effectively making it an in-kind campaign contribution that went well beyond the limits. Trump has pleaded not guilty to the charges, and once again, it's slated to start very soon on April 15th. Now let's go to the Georgia election interference case. Judge Scott McAfee this week denied Trump's attempt to dismiss the Georgia election interference case. Trump and his many co-defendants argued that the indictment infringed on their First Amendment rights, specifically free speech rights. But McAfee clarified that political speech does not shield criminal activity from prosecution, emphasizing intent over truthfulness. Of course, this was always a ridiculous argument to make, because if you use your speech to commit a crime, well, then it's no longer free speech. Just like if you say to your friend, hey, go kill this person for me, that speech is not protected. And yes, you can be prosecuted for doing that, rightfully so. The judge in the case wrote, "Even core political speech addressing matters of public concern is not impenetrable from prosecution if allegedly used to further criminal activity." Now, the defendants claimed that Donald Trump was just using political speech, like when, for example, he called up Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and asked him to find the 11,280 votes. That was just political speech, according to them. And so Donald Trump can't be prosecuted for making false political statements. Notice how they say that it's false in this case, but when Donald Trump is speaking to his supporters at a rally or to the media, then he's all of a sudden willing to say that no, the claims were truthful, but his lawyers in court aren't willing to say that. That's just a bit of a side note. But the judge stepped in and retorted that this went well beyond mere political speech, because he was actually trying to change the course of public policy and change official government action, which isn't just politics at that point. That has to do with the actions of government. So the argument did not stand up. The case, of course, revolves around allegations of interference in Georgia in the 2020 election. And Trump is facing charges related to election claims. Of course, we had that whole dispute with Fani Willis recently, who's able to continue prosecuting the case. A few of the charges in the Georgia case were dismissed, but most of them are able to stand. And we believe that the case is going to start at the end of summer or early fall. Prosecutors are targeting early August as the time to begin that case. And then finally, let's talk about the classified documents case, one of the two federal cases. U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon rejected Trump's plea to dismiss the classified documents case. Trump asserted that the documents were personal under the Presidential Records Act, a claim that he's been making all along. Trump keeps citing the Presidential Records Act, but we know that the charges that Trump is facing when it comes to this case have nothing to do with the Presidential Records Act, so it just doesn't work as a defense. And these were not just personal documents that Donald Trump took and refused to give back. They were actual government secrets, sometimes nuclear secrets. That's why he was charged under the Espionage Act, and that's why this was a criminal matter. The Presidential Records Act doesn't even have to do with matters of criminal concern. And Eileen Cannon, who is a Trump-supporting, Trump-appointed right-wing judge, even she had to turn down this ridiculous request from the Trump team, ruling the charges against him make no reference to the Presidential Records Act, nor do they rely on that statute for purposes of stating an offense. So basically, she responded by saying, "Sir, this is a Wendy's." Cannon's ruling allows for the defense to revisit the argument, however, during the trial, which is slated to begin on May 20th. The case, of course, revolves around charges of willful retention of national defense information, false statements, and obstruction of justice. By the way, Jack Smith has taken issue with Judge Eileen Cannon at a number of turns, including recently over a matter having to do with jury instructions, and he criticized the judge publicly, leaving Trump with an opportunity to white knight for Judge Eileen Cannon to rush to her defense and suck up to her. He did exactly that with a post on Truth Social recently saying, quote, "Deranged special counsel Jack Smith, who has a long record of failure as a prosecutor, including a unanimous decision against him in the U.S. Supreme Court, should be sanctioned or censured for the way he is attacking a highly respected judge, Eileen Cannon, who is presiding over his fake documents hoax case in Florida. He is a lowlife who is nasty, rude, and condescending, and obviously trying to play the ref. He shouldn't even be allowed to participate in this sham case, where I, unlike crooked Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and all the rest, come under the Presidential Records Act. I did nothing wrong, but Biden did, and they let him off scot-free. How did that happen, Jack? A two-tiered system of justice, election interference." So, of course, when Trump attacks judges and the family members of judges, he shouldn't be sanctioned or censured, but when Jack Smith politely criticizes Eileen Cannon's legal opinion, all of a sudden that is worthy of sanction and censure. You gotta love the lack of consistency from Donald Trump. And of course, every other judge involved in one of these Trump cases he doesn't like, because he assesses that they're going to be unfair to him and that they're left-wing judges. But when it comes to Eileen Cannon, he's actually okay with her. He's hoping that she will stay loyal to him. But in this instance, she wasn't able to make it happen because it was just too beyond the pale. This case has nothing to do with the Presidential Records Act, so she couldn't cite it as a reason to dismiss the case, meaning as of now, this is going to go forward. So there you have it. Back to back to back legal defeats handed to Donald Trump. It's hugely embarrassing, and it means that these cases are going to go forward soon, with the first one beginning on April 15th. You better believe we are going to be following it. All right, let's go to a brief break. We'll be back with much more of the David Pakman Show right after this.
Today's sponsor, Ground News, is an app and website that quickly shows you how news is being covered across the political spectrum, adding context and making it easy to understand the polarizing events like the election season that we're in. If you're watching this on YouTube, Donald Trump and Joe Biden secured their party's nominations for a historic presidential rematch. So I'll be looking at Ground News's election page for minute-to-minute updates on the issues that matter most and the blind spots in the left and right's election coverage. So, for example, check out the breakdown on why the GOP's Biden impeachment appears to be falling apart. Ground News found more than 20 articles published on this, but I can see it's a near total blind spot for people only following right-leaning news. I wonder why. And looking over here, many of these articles come from reliable sources, with each giving me some new detail, and reading their summary of this from each political viewpoint really just gets me up to speed in seconds on any issue. So make separating fact from noise easier this election by going to ground.news/Pakman. My viewers get 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. making it just $5 a month. The link is down below.